All right, welcome to this explainer. Look, the stakes have quite literally never been higher. It's 2026. The FIFA World Cup is on home soil, and stepping onto the pitch is widely regarded as the absolute most talented group of players in United States history, what everyone is calling the Golden Generation. But as any football fan knows, having talent on paper doesn't automatically mean you're going to be lifting trophies at the end of the day. We've got a massive expectation versus reality puzzle to solve before that opening whistle even blows.
So, to figure out that puzzle, we're basically treating today as a comprehensive scouting report. Here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at the Golden Generation's moment. Then, we'll talk about the mastermind, Mauricio Pochettino. After that, we'll dive into tactics, highlight key players and their vulnerabilities, do some rapid-fire scouting on Group D, and finally, wrap it all up with a realistic tournament outlook. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Golden Generation's moment and their unprecedented pedigree at home. Co-hosting this 26 World Cup is a true generational opportunity. I mean, the US hasn't hosted since 1994, and this time, they're bringing a roster with unprecedented experience across Europe's top leagues. But to really build some context here, we have to look back at the USMNT's historical baseline. Way back in the inaugural 1930 tournament, they actually secured a third-place finish. Fast forward to the modern era, and the 2002 quarterfinals remains their finest performance. Then, of course, we hit the absolute rock bottom of failing to qualify in 2018 before bouncing back to the round of 16 in Qatar in 2022. That 2022 round of 16, that is the exact benchmark this current squad is desperately trying to surpass on their own turf.
But to shatter those benchmarks, you need a mastermind pulling the strings, which brings us to Section 2. Enter Mauricio Pochettino, the demanding mastermind. US Soccer didn't just hire a manager here. They brought in an elite, deeply demanding coach to orchestrate a deep run.
Pochettino's hiring was a massive shockwave for the whole program. We're talking about a guy mentored by the legendary Marcelo Bielsa. He famously guided Tottenham Hotspur to the 2019 Champions League final without buying a single outfield player that entire year. He's managed galaxy-level talent at PSG and Chelsea, and crucially, he demands a high-intensity, super aggressive pressing style. It's an incredible track record, and frankly, it brings an intense culture shock to a US squad that's used to a totally different standard of preparation.
Okay, let's dive into this next part because this is where the rubber really meets the road. Section 3. Tactics and playing style, specifically the Pochettino blueprint. Let's look at the complex tactical systems he's installed since taking over.
Under Pochettino, you see this stark tactical contrast. It's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde situation. Out of possession, they organize into this really disciplined, defensive 4-4-2 shape. The goal is to compress those central areas and force the opposition out to the wings. But the second they get the ball, boom, they shift completely into a 3-2-5 setup. Two center backs stay back, the fullbacks either invert or push way up high, and 5 players just flood the attacking zones to stretch those defensive lines. That kind of structural flexibility is exactly what you see in modern elite football.
But, that structural shift definitely comes with risks, specifically their mid-block. For those who might not know, a mid-block is basically holding your defensive shape right in the middle third of the pitch. And as we saw in the pre-tournament friendlies, if the pressing triggers of the US players aren't perfectly synchronized, top European teams are just going to pick that shape apart. Any slight hesitation in the press becomes an immediate liability. It's a total high-wire act. And executing that high-wire act comes down entirely to the personnel. Let's move to Section 4, Key Players and Vulnerabilities, the arsenal and the flaws. Let's pivot to the core trio acting as the team's primary weapons.
All right, the heartbeat of this team is Christian Pulisic at AC Milan. His creative brilliance is unquestioned, and let's be real, the team is heavily dependent on him. Then you have the engine, Tyler Adams of Bournemouth. He is an absolute necessity in that midfield. No one else plays the defensive shield quite like him. And finally, the wild card, Gio Reyna at Mönchengladbach. He offers this totally unpredictable, match-changing upside. But here is the massive flaw. The availability of this exact trio could literally make or break the campaign. They've all battled serious injuries, and when they aren't on the pitch, the drop-off in the team's performance is steep.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the 5-2 reality check. A super harsh defeat to Belgium back in March. The US actually led 1-0 early on, and man, fans were already planning the parade, right? But then they got completely dismantled and outplayed by elite European opposition in the second half. It exposed that exact mid-block vulnerability we were just talking about. It basically threw ice-cold water all over that home turf hype.
which prompted this stunningly candid admission. He literally said, the USMNT lacks top 100 talent. I mean, wow. And that's not some TV pundit talking. That is from Mauricio Pochettino himself after those March losses. It's an incredibly honest statement, designed to ground the hype and highlight the very real gap between the US and the world's true heavyweights like Spain, France, and Brazil.
So knowing those flaws, who exactly stands in their way first? Welcome to Section 5, Scouting Group D, the battlefield. Let's do a quick rapid-fire scouting report. The 16th ranked US actually got a highly favorable draw here. First up, Paraguay, ranked 40th. They bring a very physical, defensively organized counterattacking style. Then there's Australia, sitting at 27, employing a modern mid-block with some solid Premier League experience. And finally, Turkey at 22. They are incredibly tactically astute with top European League attackers. They are easily the biggest threat in the group. But the big takeaway here, as the host and the highest-ranked team, the US is absolutely expected to top this group. No excuses.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, Section 6, Realistic Tournament Outlook, the Mathematical Destiny. It is time to bring everything together and look at the true, data-grounded probability of success here.
Survival really depends entirely on 4 specific variables. Number 1, Tyler Adams' physical sharpness and his ability to play a full 90 minutes. 2, Christian Pulisic overcoming his early 2026 goal drought to find that peak form. 3, Gio Reyna avoiding injury and providing that creative spark. And lastly, tactical clarity from Pochettino under pressure. The experimentation phase, yeah, that has to be completely over.
Let's cut straight through the emotional bias of a home crowd for a second and look at the cold, hard math. According to the Opta supercomputer, the USMNT has an 85% chance to advance from Group D. So the path is right there. Reaching the round of 16, that drops to a 45% chance, because they'd likely face much tougher opposition. And reaching the quarterfinals, just a 20% probability. The data literally proves that the quarterfinals is the realistic ceiling for this squad. It's doable for sure, but it requires near-perfect execution. Analysts are classifying the USMNT right now as a confident dark horse. And it makes sense. They've unprecedented talent, an elite manager, and the undeniable advantage of playing on home soil. But, as we've seen, those vulnerabilities against top-tier opponents definitely remain. So I will leave you with this final, high-stakes question. Will home soil be enough to push this confident dark horse into the true elite? Think about that as we count down the days to kickoff. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and enjoy the tournament!